What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today it's time to look at the first best One Piece deck. You see, there was a pretty large tournament over at NX Gallery Card Game and Board Game Cafe over in Bangkok in Thailand, and they had a lot of players, 150 players. So I think this is a really good place to start to see what is good and what is winning. But this does come with a fairly big caveat. And that is, as I've been telling you all along, this game is super duper duper new, and we don't actually know very much at the moment. This is all subject to change, but I want to know what's good as much as you want to know what's good. So you know what? Yeah, I think this is a pretty good place to start. Just please, please, please remember, this is early, and things could change. So here's a breakdown of the top 16, and you'll notice that 4 of the decks, fully 1/4 of them, we've got ourselves Kid Eustass, the starter deck, Eustass Kid. And that seems like a pretty good place to start. Should also mention this is what actually went and won the whole thing. We do have a couple of different Kaido represented, the starter deck and the Romance Dawn. We've got the Crocodile from the starter deck as well. Shout out to Luffy for being the only starter deck one that wasn't represented. And then we've got some from Romance Dawn there as well. We've got Rorona Zoro coming in. We've got ourselves the dual colour Trafalgar D. Law, which is rather nice. And then we've also got ourselves the other green leader, that is Kozuki Oden. So green as a start here seems like a pretty good colour to be having a bit of a play around with. But we've got 1/4 of the top cut being that Eustass Kid, and we've got a winning deck. So I think at the moment, and I want to stress this very provisionally, I think we can call this the best deck in the game, at least at this early stage. And I should give a shout out to the lovely folks over at onepiece-cardgame.dev. All the translated proxies we're using here come from those lovely people. So, I've told you that the leader is your Eustass Captain Kid. This is the one from the starter deck. Standard 5,000 power, 5 life. But activate main once per turn, rest 3 Don, discard a card from your hand, switch this leader to active. And we've seen this in games like Digimon. You're allowed to attack a certain amount of times, depending on how many characters you've got. So being able to attack an extra time by turning your leader to active, obviously brilliant. So yeah, this seems like an incredibly powerful skill because you get an extra activation of your leader every turn. And come, a couple turns in, you're going to be able to rest 3 Don, you're going to be able to discard a card from your hand, and you are going to be doing this every turn. It seems extremely strong. Lovely. So what else do we have coming in here? Well, we've got a couple of 1-cost cards that are making their way in here. So we've got a full playset of Jewelry Bonnie, again from the starter deck. I'll try and remember to point out where these actually come from. And what we've got here is 1 cost 1,000 power, very, very weak. But activate main, rest 1 Don, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Supernova type card and add it to your hand. So this gives you extra consistency. It means you've got cards in hand if you need to discard with Eustass Kid, etc. Yeah, this seems pretty gosh darn good. It's consistency. It's awesome. The other 1-cost card we see coming in here is Capone Gang Beige? Not entirely sure, be honest with you. But again, we've got from the starter deck here is a 1-cost blocker. And we see this in basically every game where blockers are a thing. This ends up being pretty gosh darn big. Because you need to be able to stop your opponent being able to do very much. So, yeah, honestly, this is brilliant. This is stopping your opponent actually being able to do anything. It means that their attacks fail. You're going to need blockers in basically every deck. This is a rather nice blocker to use. Now, there is a bit of a theme here with playsets because we've also got a playset of Killer. This is one of the ones from Romance Dawn. 2 cost, 2,000 power, 1,000 counter. Again, we've got blocker. But when you're blocking, Don X1, if you control 3 or more characters, you draw a card. So here we got another blocker. As previously mentioned, blockers are good, but you've also got some draw power coming in here as well. This is pretty gosh darn nice. We've then got Scratch Menapoo here from the starter deck. 2 cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter. You'll notice we've got a few cards coming in here that can counter. That is not a coincidence. And Don X1, when attacking, rest one of your opponent's Don cards. This is nice. Gives them fewer options. Means they've got less to work with. But also this is counter 2,000. And counter 2,000 is clearly extremely good. I would wager that a lot of the time you're using this to actually counter rather than mucking around too much with attacking. Because, well, yeah, you're going to need to counter quite a bit. Having 2,000 counter, pretty gosh darn good. Now, we've also got a playset of some free cost cards here, like the Killer from the starter deck. Free cost, 3,000 power, 1,000 counter. As a trigger, you play the card. So if it comes out of your life, you play it. That's pretty good. But when you play, you KO one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 3 or less. So it's a card that you play for free if it comes out of your life. And when you play it, you KO one of your opponent's weaker characters, like a weak blocker for argument's sake. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. And then we've also got ourselves a playset of Ezo here. 3 cost, 3,000 power, another 2,000 counter, which is very, very nice. And then when you play, you rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So that could be resting a blocker so they can't block. It could be resting a character because you're only allowed to attack rested characters. So you rest them so you can then go after them. Either way, this seems pretty gosh darn nice to me. So yeah, this seems like there's a good reason to be playing this one. Now, we got one 4-cost character coming in here. We have got X-Drake again from the starter deck. You'll notice a lot of these cards are from the starter deck. It's clearly a very strong starter deck. 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1,000 counter. And Don X1, during your turn, while this character is rested, you get 1,000 power for all of your Marines and Supernova characters and leaders. I mean, yeah, when you're rested, you buff all your characters by 1,000. That's clearly a very good thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is clearly something we can be a little bit excited about. And then in terms of 5-cost characters, honestly, it's a Trafalgar D. Law party. Now, we firstly got a playset of the one that came around in the starter deck. This is one of the designated super rares. Yes, there's only 2 copies in the starter deck. Yes, you will need to buy 2 of the starter decks to get a playset. I'm telling you this all along. You need 2 of each of the starter decks. I'm sorry. It's the good cards that tend to come as 2-ofs. 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. But on play, you set one of your rested characters with a Supernovas or Heart Pirates trait and a cost of 5 or less to active. Yeah, I've just gotten over telling you how your leader sets itself to active, and that's kind of brilliant. Well, this basically does the same thing, but it's for anyone when you play it. You're getting extra activations, extra attacks. You get to attack more than your opponent. In a game where getting 6 attacks through wins you the game, 5 to take out the life and 1 to win. And yes, I know that double attack can do it quicker. And I know that dual color leaders have 4 life, not 5. But as a general rule, yeah, being able to attack more times is a very good thing. And then we got the Trafalgar D. Law from Romance Dawn that is also a super rare. 5 cost, 6,000 power with blocker. You will notice that's 12 blockers in the deck. That is a lot of blockers. And when you play, you can return one of your characters to your hand and play a character with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. So it's basically a way of switching out your characters. While you're playing this, you also get to switch one of your characters, which is clearly a good thing, especially when you build in the whole blocking thing. So yeah, we like this one as well. But there is one other 5-cost character here. It is X-Drake. 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1,000 counter. And when you play, you KO one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. So again, we got ways to start removing our opponent's characters here. And we've got a bunch of removing characters. We got a bunch of blocking. We got a bunch of activating. These things together are going to absolutely get you to a win. And then we've got a big character. We've got one character coming in here, which is kind of like your late game. It's going to take a while to get it on the board, but it's going to be worth it when you do. It is the super rare Captain Eustass Kid from Romance Dawn. 8 cost, 8,000 power. So this is not an early game character. But Don X1 on your opponent's turn. If this character is rested, your opponent cannot attack anything other than characters named Eustass Captain Kid. You will notice this is the only character called this. So essentially, as soon as this is rested, your opponent can only go after these dudes, not anybody else. And we got activate main once per turn. You may rest this character and play a character with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. There are 11 characters in this deck, all of them played as 4-ofs. 6 of them are 3 cost or less. So that is more than half of your characters that you can play for free using this. And then you can force your opponent to not be able to attack those characters and have to go after an 8,000 power character. This is clearly a ridiculous card. Because essentially every turn you're playing a character for free, that's ridiculous. And of course, if you're playing a character for free, that frees up your Don to use stuff like your leader's skill, which is great. And then your opponent can't go after your other characters, only this that has 8,000 power to begin with. Yeah. This is clearly a ridiculous character, and sure, it's going to take a little while for this to actually get rolling, but when it does, ladies and gentlemen, it is totally going to be worth it. So there are all of your characters. They are all played as 4-ofs. Like I've said, these are early deck lists of a very small pool of cards, but then we've got half a dozen event cards to finish off. So we've got ourselves the 2-cost Punk Gibson. It's a counter. Your leader or up to one of your characters gains 4,000 power for the duration of the battle, and then rest one of your opponent's characters for the cost of 4 or less. So when your opponent's attacking, the theory here is you buff yourself while resting one of their characters. That's good. And as a trigger, you just rest one of your opponent's characters. And then we finish off with a couple copies of the 1-cost Paradise Waterfall. As a counter, your leader or one of your characters gains 2,000 power, and then you set one of your characters to active. So, extra blocker, something along those lines. Also, as a trigger, you KO one of your opponent's rested characters for the cost of 4 or less. So again, activating characters or unsuspending, or call it what you will, and KOing your opponent's characters. This is good. This seems like a very strong deck. Like I've said a couple of times, consider this a front runner and an early approximation of what's good, rather than a guarantee of best deck moving forward. But right now, this does seem to be the deck to beat, and that's kind of fun. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me if you think it is that good. Tell me if you think there's something else out there which is a little bit better. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk One Piece and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.